When we can track 2 points with the tracker node, it opens up a lot of possibilities beyond tracking simply translation and rotation. We can also translate scale by measuring the distance between the 2 points. And this opens up some interesting possibilities. For example, in this case, this back wall is simply just a plane, really, and it's moving straight away from the camera. So we could actually use this to our advantage to create a very lightweight virtual set in this case. There's no real other features that show other than the wall pretty much throughout the entire shot. So if we wanted to just stick a wall to this green screen, we have perfect reference with these 2 markers. So let's drop down a tracker node. And I'm going to track the corners of these tape marks because the corners will not grow or shrink through the duration of the shot. And in this particular case, I can probably be fairly frugal with my trackers because things aren't moving very fast. I'm going to use 2 trackers on each tape mark. And the reason for this is that when trackers see noise, they will sometimes jitter a little bit. But if you can average that noise out by using more than 1 tracker, sometimes you can smooth out the results. So I'm interested in getting translation. Maybe there's some rotation that we can't really see by rocking and rolling the shot. I'll enable that as well. And I would like to also have this solve for scale. So I'm going to just enable these now in the tracker. Now I will select all the trackers I want to have active during the track. And I'll just say track to end. And it looks like Nuke managed to track all of the trackers that I laid down with no problems. So we're in good shape here. And I want to match move this back wall image to my set here. So I'm going to go to the Transform tab. And for the transformation, I'm going to select Match Move. And that will turn this Transform tab into a calculator that calculates all of the correct transformations for a match move relative to my reference frame, which in this case is frame 1. I can set this to any frame I want. I'm just going to leave it at frame 1. I can also generate a match move node using the tracker tab here and selecting Transform Match Move. And that's the strategy I'm going to do here. Rather than copying the transforms manually to another node, I'm going to have the tracker node generate one for me. So this is all around that reference frame, reference 1. So if I view here and we move through the shot, you'll see that it is transforming this around that reference frame. So let's bring these 2 images together so we can get a better sense of what's going on. I'm just going to bring in the Primat node really quick. And we'll let it auto-compute the screen color. Clean the foreground noise really quickly just to make this a little more solid. And then clean the background noise. There we go. Now I can just slap these 2 together right here in the Primat node. And I can see that my match move is not really lining it up as I would like. I'm running out of cinder block wall, so I'm going to put a transform, a simple transform, right above here. And I'm going to use that to position the background a little bit more appropriately for this shot. So on frame 1, which is my reference frame, this image is essentially 1-to-1. And depending on how far away those cinder blocks were meant to be and what type of blocks they were, you might need to scale them up or down. We'll just leave them at that size. And you can see Because this wall is what I tracked, the cinder block wall is sticking perfectly to that. And I don't need to corner pin it or anything in this particular case because we're moving straight away from it. Okay. But I still need to GMAT the talent here in the shot. And it looks like I'd still need to clean up my prime mat a little bit. Let's go ahead and touch this up. I'll clean BG noise a little bit more. And I don't know if we'd be able to get away with just using one keyer like this. Chances are you would not be able to get away with it. Let's just call this a garbage mat for now, or rather a slap comp, just to test our track or to create our hard mat. But to clean up this hard mat, let's say we were going to use this as a procedural mat to do the rest of our keying. We still have some GMATting we need to do. Maybe we could take this opportunity to build a smarter GMAT using our match move. So I'm going to move all the way to the end frame here. I'm going to drop down a roto node. And then I'm going to start drawing a GMAT around the actor here. And what I can do is I can use my match move, transform tab here, to move my roto. So I'll use the expression links to do that. I select the shape that I want to move, and in the case I want the centers to match. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to remove these keyframes from the center of my roto node by selecting right click and no animation, and that'll kill all the keyframes. And then if I left click and drag that knob to this knob, it will copy the value. So now the center points of my match move and my roto node are the same. And I want to get translation, rotation, and scale into the translation, rotation, and scale of the roto node. So I'm going to control, left click, drag this knob to this knob to expression link the translate. And I'll do that for each one. Rotation, expression link, rotation. And scale, left click, control, left click, and drag, scale. So now the roto shape is match moving to the background. And the mistake that I made here was that I drew it on frame 1880 rather than the reference frame. So I wanted to show you that so you could see what would happen if you were to do something not on the reference frame. At this point now, I could either go to the reference frame and edit this at the shape level directly and just kind of touch it up a little bit to make it right. And since these shapes happen at a different, they're animated at a different level from the overall transforms, you can use them together in a situation like this. So I'm going to start with that one. I have one keyframe there, and I'll go to the next keyframe to kill that next keyframe with the minus key here. So now my gross motion of this shape should pretty much be right just based on my match move, but you'll see he's moving his head around a bit. So I'll still need to animate his head. So create a keyframe here. And let's see if we can get away with not too many more keyframes. So if you ever run into a situation, a mysterious situation, when it seems like a match move goes completely wild when you connect it, chances are it's because you're not doing it on the reference frame that the match move, that the tracker node has set up as the reference frame. So there we go. My rotoshape GMAT is pretty much following him through the shot with about 4 keyframes. And another feature that I can exploit of Primat is that it has knowledge of GMATs. So I could use this field here, mask, and tell it to use the alpha channel, the incoming alpha channel, as a mask before it applies its own algorithm. So now I've effectively GMATted Primat, so Primat doesn't even bother. It will build this GMAT into its final solution that it comes up with. So you can get a lot of mileage out of this, especially when you're using Primat for creating your hard mats, your core mats, and your procedural GMATs. You can build a lot of stuff all at once using Primat this way. So now we have our mat for him, and I'm just going to leave it in this state. This is just a slap comp just to show you the idea of what you can do with nothing more than a 2D tracker, simple point tracker, and using every feature that it can track: translation, rotation, scale. Pretty cool.